The vinyl chair squeaked beneath me as I watched my son Michael sign the papers. His pen moved fast across the forms, like he'd practiced this moment. My single suitcase sat between my feet. Everything I owned now fit in one bag. He told me this morning it was temporary care, just until he figured things out. But the way he wouldn't look at me, the way he kept checking his phone, told me something different. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and something else I couldn't name. Defeat, maybe. Other families walked past us, visiting their loved ones with flowers and smiles. Michael just kept signing. When he finally stood up, he adjusted his expensive watch and cleared his throat. "Mom, I'll call you soon," he said to the wall behind me. The doors locked automatically after he left. That's when I realized. He never said when he'd come back. He never even asked which room they'd put me in. My hands shook as I gripped the suitcase handle tighter. A nurse with kind eyes led me to a small office. Her name tag read, Patricia. She sat across from me and gently pushed a paper toward me, the same one Michael had signed. "Mrs. Wallace, I need to explain something important," Patricia said softly. "This form your son filled out. After 30 days with no contact or payment, it becomes a legal declaration of abandonment." The word hit me like a slap. Abandonment. I raised Michael alone after his father died. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I helped with his wedding, babysat his kids every weekend for years. And now this paper said I was abandoned? "There must be a mistake," I whispered. "My grandchildren." Patricia's expression told me to stop. She pointed to a line on the form, emergency contacts. None. Family status. No contact. He'd checked boxes that erased me from my own family. My chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out. Patricia walked me to the front desk to get my room assignment. The receptionist behind the counter was young, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail. Her name tag said, Amy. When she saw me, something flickered across her face. Recognition. Pity. She looked down quickly, fingers typing too fast on her keyboard. "Room 2847, Amy said quietly. "Second floor, East Wing." As Patricia led me away, Amy suddenly stood up. "Wait, Mrs. Wallace." Her voice cracked slightly. She grabbed a paper cup, filled it with water from the cooler, and walked around the desk. Her hands were shaking as she handed it to me. She leaned close and whispered, "That's the 3rd time this month he's done this." Before I could respond, she rushed back to her desk. Patricia pretended not to hear, but I saw her jaw tighten. 3rd time. What did that mean? That night, I couldn't sleep. The roommate they'd assigned me snored softly in the bed next to mine. I kept replaying Amy's words. 3rd time this month. I had to know what she meant. The next morning, I found Amy at the front desk during her break. She looked nervous when I approached, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Please," I said. "What did you mean yesterday?" Amy bit her lip. "Your son. I've seen him before. He's brought in other elderly people, always saying it's temporary, always filling out the same forms. None of them were ever picked up." My stomach dropped. "But why? Who were they?" "I don't know all the details," Amy admitted. "But I overheard someone mention they weren't relatives. They were connected to him somehow. Business partners, maybe? People who trusted him." She paused. "People with assets." The pattern was starting to form in my mind, but I didn't want to believe it. Patricia took me to my room after breakfast. As we walked down the hallway, I noticed the doors. Some had locks, some didn't. Mine didn't. "This is the state-subsidized wing," Patricia explained gently. "It's for residents whose families can't afford private care." I stopped walking. But Michael told me he'd arranged everything. He said he'd paid for the best care available. Patricia's silence was louder than any words. She helped me into my room, a space I'd share with a stranger, with thin walls and a bathroom that didn't lock. This wasn't what Michael had described during our phone calls last month. He talked about private suites, activities, dignity. Where did the money go? If he wasn't paying for my care, what happened to my savings? I'd given him access to my accounts 6 months ago when he said it would make things easier as I got older. That first night was endless. My roommate, Dorothy, was kind but hard of hearing. She slept early, around 7 o'clock, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the sounds of the facility at night. Around 9, 2 staff members walked past our open door. I heard their voices clearly. "Did you see who just dropped off the new woman in 2847? One asked. "Michael Wallace?" "Yeah, that's the guy with the power of attorney scam," the other replied. My blood went cold. Power of attorney scam? I sat up in bed, straining to hear more, but they'd moved down the hallway. My hands found my purse in the dark. Inside was my phone, the one lifeline I still had. I needed to check my bank account, needed to see if my worst fears were true. But when I unlocked my phone, my banking app was gone. 7. I searched every screen, every folder. The app had vanished. In its place was a message, access restricted by account holder. Account holder. That should be me. I tried logging into the bank's website, but my password didn't work. I tried the forgot password option, but it said my email was no longer associated with the account. Michael had locked me out of my own money. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. 6 months ago, he'd convinced me to add him to my accounts, just in case. He'd said it was for emergencies, so he could help me pay bills if I got confused. I'd trusted him. I'd signed the papers at his kitchen table while his wife brought us coffee and smiled at me. How long had he been planning this? I thought about the past year, how often he'd visited, always with new forms to sign, always explaining they were just updates to my estate planning. The next morning, I waited near the front desk. Amy arrived for her shift at 8, and I caught her eye. She motioned subtly toward the hallway near the bathrooms. I followed a few minutes later. "I could lose my job for this," Amy whispered, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. "But you deserve to know." She handed me a printed visitor log. My son's name appeared over and over, dated back 2 years. Next to each visit were notes, meeting with estate attorney, document signing, asset transfer consultation. "He's been coming here for years?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Not for you," Amy said. "For others. This facility, it's become part of his operation. He befriends elderly people, gains their trust, gets power of attorney, and then..." She couldn't finish. "How many?" I needed to know. "At least 7 that I've tracked." That afternoon, Dorothy finally opened up to me. We were sitting in the common area, watching a game show neither of us cared about. "You seem sad," she said, patting my hand. "New resident blues?" "My son," I started, then stopped. How could I explain? "Say no more." Dorothy's expression darkened. "I lost my house the same way. My nephew, he seemed so helpful. Had me sign papers for better care," he said. "Turned out they were property transfers. By the time I realized, the house was sold and he had the money." My throat tightened. "Did you try to fight it?" "I tried. But the lawyer he used was slick. Made everything look legal. Made me look senile when I protested." She squeezed my hand. "The lawyer's name was Bernard Hutchins. You might want to remember that. The same lawyer. This was bigger than just Michael." I waited 3 days before calling him. I needed to be calm, needed to sound like I just wanted to talk. When he finally answered on the 4th ring, his voice was annoyed. "Mom, I'm busy. I just wanted to check in," I said carefully. "About when you might visit. We talked about this. You're confused. The home is good for you right now. You need professional care." "Michael, I'm not confused. I'm asking when I can see my grandchildren. Don't start with this again." His tone shifted, Harder now. You're making this difficult. If you keep calling me, I'll have to block your number. The staff said you might be experiencing some paranoia. Maybe we need to adjust your medications. Gaslighting. That's what this was. Making me doubt my own mind. I haven't been given any medications, I said quietly. He hung up. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text. Please stop calling. You're not well. Amy found me crying in the hallway the next morning. She helped me to a quiet corner near the chapel. Management knows something's wrong, she whispered. They've been tracking the pattern with your son, but they need proof. They need someone willing to make a formal complaint, someone who'll testify if it goes legal. Testify against my own son? I know it's hard. But Mrs. Wallace, you wouldn't be the first. And if you don't stop him, you won't be the last. Amy's eyes were wet. My grandmother was one of his victims. She died here 3 months ago, believing her family abandoned her. I couldn't prove anything then. But now, with you, maybe we can. This changed everything. Amy wasn't just a sympathetic stranger. She had personal stakes in this. What do you need from me? I asked. Everything you remember. Every document you signed. Every conversation that felt wrong. Dorothy watched me pace our room that night. Finally, she spoke up. You're trying to remember something. Documents, I said. Papers I signed. But I can't remember where I kept my originals. Dorothy smiled. People like us, we grew up hiding important things. Think, dear. Where would your younger self have stashed something precious? Then it hit me, the lockbox. 20 years ago, after my husband died, I'd hidden a fireproof box in my basement behind the old furnace. Inside was my original will, life insurance papers, the deed to my house. Things I didn't want anyone to find unless I chose to show them. Dorothy, you're brilliant, I breathed. But my son has my house keys. Does he know about the spare? She asked with a wink. The spare key. I'd given it to my neighbor Harold, years ago for emergencies. If he still lived there, if he still had it. I managed to reach Harold using Dorothy's phone. His voice was shocked to hear from me. Eleanor. Michael said you'd moved to Florida to be near your sister. I don't have a sister, Harold. The silence on his end spoke volumes. What's really going on? I explained everything. Harold promised to check my house the next day. But that evening, something else happened. A Facebook message notification on my phone. It was from Chloe, my 16-year-old granddaughter. Grandma, is this really you? Dad said you moved away and didn't want to see us anymore. He deleted your number from my phone. I had to search for your name to find you. Please tell me he was lying. My hands shook as I typed back. The lie wasn't just about money. It was about erasing me from their lives completely. Amy asked me to meet her after her shift. We sat in her car in the parking lot. I need to tell you something, she began. My grandmother, Gloria Winters, your son befriended her at a community center. He helped her with her computer, drove her to appointments. She thought he was wonderful. Then one day, he brought her here, just like you. Said it was temporary. Amy's voice cracked. She kept asking when Michael would visit. She died still believing her real family had abandoned her and only Michael cared. It wasn't until after, when I went through her papers, that I realized what he'd done. Her house, her savings, all gone. Why didn't you report it then? I tried. But the lawyer covered everything. Made it all look voluntary. Made my grandma look incompetent. She turned to face me. But I've been collecting evidence ever since. Every person he's brought here, every document I could copy. I've got files, Mrs. Wallace. I've been building a case. I just needed someone willing to be the face of it. I'll do it, I said without hesitation. Amy connected me with an attorney named Victor Price. He specialized in elder law and took cases pro bono when he suspected abuse. We met in a small conference room at the facility. Victor reviewed every document I could remember signing, every detail of Michael's behavior. His expression grew darker with each page. "Mrs. Wallace, this isn't just unethical," he finally said. "This is criminal. Your son committed fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. These are felonies." "But he's my son," I whispered. "And you're his mother. The law is very clear about this. Family relationship doesn't exempt him from prosecution. In fact, it might make the charges more severe." Victor leaned forward. "The question is, are you ready to pursue this? Because once we start, there's no going back." I thought about Chloe's message, about Dorothy's lost house, about Amy's grandmother dying alone and confused, about the 7 other people Michael had betrayed. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." Michael came to visit exactly once. It was 3 weeks after he'd left me there. He walked into the common area in his expensive suit, looking like he was doing charity work. Other residents watched as he approached me. "Hi, Mom." His smile was rehearsed. "How are you settling in?" "Where are my grandchildren?" I asked quietly. His jaw tightened. "They're busy with school. Look, I came to remind you that you're being taken care of here. You need to stop calling me, stop sending messages to Chloe. You're just confusing everyone. I want access to my bank accounts. We've discussed this. You're not capable of managing your finances." The doctor here agreed. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Don't embarrass yourself, Mom. Don't make this ugly. Just accept that this is what's best for you." He didn't know that Amy was watching from the front desk. He didn't know about Victor. He didn't know that his carefully built lie was about to crumble. Amy had been planning this moment for weeks. She'd noticed that Michael always stopped at the front desk when he visited, always chatted with whoever was working, always made sure he seemed like the devoted son to any witnesses. This time, she was ready. The desk phone had a record function for quality assurance. When Michael stopped on his way out, she activated it. "You know, you're really good at this," Amy said casually. "Most families struggle with the transition." Michael preened. "It's about knowing the system. Most people don't understand how easy it is to navigate elder care laws if you know what you're doing. Power of attorney is everything. Once you have that, you basically control their whole life. And if they protest, well, that just proves they need the care, right?" "Smart," Amy said, making her voice admiring. "How many times have you done this?" "Enough to perfect it," Michael boasted. "The trick is choosing people who are isolated, who'll trust you. Then it's just paperwork." The recording captured every word. Victor brought the evidence to the facility's board of directors. They had no choice but to escalate it to Adult Protective Services and the police. An investigation was opened. But I was terrified. Michael was still technically my son, still the person listed as my power of attorney. What if he found out? What if he retaliated? What if I never saw my grandchildren again? "He can't hurt you anymore," Victor assured me. The moment we filed the report, emergency protective orders went into effect. "He can't access your accounts, can't make decisions for you, can't even contact you without consequences." Still, I barely slept. Dorothy held my hand through the worst nights. Amy checked on me every shift. Harold called daily with updates. He'd found my lockbox, and it contained everything. The original will Michael had never seen, documents proving my competency, records of my assets before Michael took control. The evidence was overwhelming. They arrested Michael on a Tuesday morning. Amy called me right after it happened. He'd been picked up in the lobby of his office building. Quiet, professional, but unmistakable. I didn't see him until his arraignment. Through the courthouse window, our eyes met. He looked shocked first, then furious. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Michael just stared at me. The expression on his face was one I'd never seen before. It wasn't my son anymore. It was a stranger caught in his own trap. They charged him with 7 counts of felony fraud, 4 counts of forgery, and 9 counts of financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. The bail was set high. He didn't look at me again. Later, in the courthouse hallway, I cried. Not for him, for the son I thought I'd raised, the one who apparently never existed. The local news picked up the story within days. Serial financial abuser targeted elderly victims, read the headline. Michael's picture was everywhere. The details were ugly, how he'd befriended vulnerable people, gained their trust, and systematically stolen everything they had. The news coverage did something unexpected. It brought other victims forward. 8 more families contacted the prosecutor's office. People whose elderly relatives had moved away suddenly, or been placed in care homes by helpful acquaintances. The pattern was identical in every case. Bernard Hutchins, the lawyer who'd helped Michael, was also arrested. The whole operation unraveled. What started as my personal nightmare became a massive criminal investigation. Victor told me this might be one of the largest elder abuse cases the state had seen. I watched the news with Dorothy and Amy. We didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. But there was a grim satisfaction in knowing he couldn't hurt anyone else. The legal process moved faster than I expected. With the recorded confession, the documents from my lockbox, and testimony from other victims, Michael's lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. He'd serve time in prison, and all assets would be returned to victims. My house was still in my name. Michael hadn't finished the transfer before his arrest. My bank accounts were restored, every penny accounted for. Victor helped me establish new protections, new safeguards to prevent this from ever happening again. But the real victory wasn't the money or the house. It was standing in the courtroom during sentencing, reading my victim impact statement, and watching Michael realize that his mother, the woman he'd discarded, had been the one to bring him down. "You taught me to fight for what's right," I read from my statement. "I'm sorry you forgot that lesson yourself." 3 weeks after the sentencing, a letter arrived from the prison. Michael's handwriting on the envelope made my stomach turn. I almost threw it away unopened, but Dorothy convinced me to read it. The letter was 2 pages of excuses. Stress from his job. Problems in his marriage. Financial pressure. He blamed everyone but himself. The last paragraph asked for forgiveness, asked if we could move past this, and rebuild our relationship. I read it once, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Some betrayals don't earn redemption. Some apologies come too late to matter. Victor told me that Michael's wife had filed for divorce. Chloe and her brother were in therapy. The family Michael had built was crumbling just like the lives he'd destroyed. I felt sad for the grandchildren. But I didn't feel guilty for pursuing justice. I didn't return to my house right away. Harold kept it maintained, checked on it weekly, but I wasn't ready to go back to that space yet. Too many memories of Michael visiting, of signing papers at the kitchen table, of trusting him. Instead, I stayed at the facility, no longer as an abandoned resident, but as a volunteer. Victor had connected me with an elder rights organization, and I started helping other residents understand their legal protections. I taught workshops on recognizing financial abuse, on protecting assets, on knowing the warning signs. Dorothy became my partner in this work. Together, we'd survived something terrible, and now we could help others avoid the same fate. It gave my anger somewhere productive to go. It gave my pain purpose. The facility administration supported us fully. They'd been horrified to learn their facility had been used as part of Michael's scheme, and they implemented new protocols to prevent it from happening again. 6 months after Michael's arrest, the facility held a ceremony. They were implementing new resident rights protections, background checks for anyone seeking power of attorney, mandatory legal consultations for residents, and whistleblower protections for staff. Amy was honored as the employee who'd made it all possible. Her quiet documentation, her willingness to risk a job, her courage to speak up, it had saved lives. She stood on the small stage in the common area, crying as the director praised her. I watched from the audience next to Dorothy. When Amy's eyes found mine, she smiled, a real smile, not the sad one I'd first seen behind the front desk. We'd both lost grandmothers in different ways, but we'd found strength in each other. After the ceremony, Amy introduced me to her mother. This is the woman who helped me get justice for Grandma Gloria, she said. Her mother hugged me tight. Thank you for being brave enough to fight. It's been a year now. I eventually returned to my house, but it looks different. I had Harold help me rearrange the furniture, paint the walls new colors. I needed it to feel like mine again, not like the place where I'd been betrayed. Chloe visits every other weekend. She's 18 now, graduating high school soon. We're rebuilding slowly, carefully. She still struggles with what her father did, still sees a therapist to process it all. But she tells me she's glad she knows the truth. Dad used to say you were too old to understand things, she told me last month. But you understood everything. You were stronger than any of us. I think about Michael sometimes, in prison. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy. But I don't forgive him either. Some wounds don't heal. They just become part of your story. Last week, I helped another elderly woman at the facility review her power of attorney documents. She was about to sign everything over to a nephew she barely knew. I sat with her and asked the questions no one had asked me. Why now? What's the rush? Who benefits from this? She decided to wait, to get an independent lawyer to review everything first. That's my victory now. Every person I help becomes proof that Michael didn't erase me. He tried to make me disappear, tried to make me powerless and forgotten. Instead, he gave me a purpose I never knew I needed. He thought leaving me in that retirement home would be the end of my story. But it was actually the beginning. The beginning of me finding my voice, my strength, and my fight. I survived my son's betrayal. And now I help others survive theirs. That's not the ending he planned for me. But it's the one I chose for myself.